Okay, this is my review of the SRPC61K1. It's a Seiko 5, and this is known as it has a nickname of bottle cap for obvious reasons. It has the shape of, kind of looks like a bottle cap, this design. And it's just a black version, and they do come in a couple other colors, such as there's a blue bezel version. It's kind of blue anodized with I believe it has a blue dial and orange hands, and there's this one that's kind of a root beer, I guess. It's got more of a kind of a rose gold. I think it's rose gold, or is it gold? It looks more like rose gold, and a brown dial. And you see here that there's an all black version, and with the case is black and so forth. And I think those are the only versions that I'm aware of. Oh yeah, and this one up here, black with the kind of like I would say it's more like a teal or aqua blue gradient dial. Not quite is it fume dial? I don't think exactly that effect, but it does obviously gradate to a darker marine or turquoise color, or even possibly black. I haven't had a close look at it, but that's that one. So these are the two bracelet versions that you can get, and actually, sorry, three, including this one, and these are the ones that are on basically like a NATO style, and that's it. These are basically available in, I believe, in the Asian market. I got this one from the Top Watch in the Philippines. But other places do sell these. You just gotta look like at some overseas stores that sell Seikos, and you'll find this. And actually, I'm gonna take this off because I gotta take pictures of this later, as this will be on sale soon. Hold on, let me just quickly remove this. Stick it with the other bits in here for now. And it just comes in this kind of, it's almost like a pearl white box. It's got the silver pillow, and the box is silver, and it's got all the appropriate paperwork and warranty cards. But like anything that isn't for the U.S. market, and I am in the United States, none of that really matters anymore, because you're buying it outside of the market. It's basically, a lot of Seikos are gray market stuff, and so you pretty much won't be able to get directly serviced from Seiko, at least not without paying for it, if they'll even take that. But there's not much to be serviced. This is using a 4R35 movement. Oh, sorry, 36A movement. As you can see on the display case back there, yeah, 4R36. So you can get these movements off eBay, and for, I believe they're around $75, or you can get the equivalent for about half of that, the NH36, which basically does the same job, for like about $35. So I wouldn't worry about servicing anything on this. It's probably less expensive if you just take the time to buy the movement and swap out the movement itself, if anything ever goes wrong with it, and then you get a fresh new movement and it should work just fine. So not a big deal. I've never been concerned about it getting gray market stuff. It just goes with the territory. And even as many SKXs, 007s and 009s are in the United States, those are actually not, those are all JDM basically, or at least they're not intended for the United States market. The US actually has their own kind of SKX version. I forget the reference numbers, but yeah. So as many as those are sold and bought, whatever, within the United States, none of those are under factory warranty. Unless you go back to Japan, or you decide you want to send it back to there, then they may honor it that way. But nothing within the United States, I believe, will service it. anyways, getting back to this watch, it's 44 millimeter diameter, but it actually plays a little smaller because, as you can see, it's wider on the bottom. I believe that's where it's 44, and the top is more like a 42. And it does help that the bezel is steel, brushed steel, like the case. So that makes the dial smaller. If it was colored the same or even something close to it, it would make the dial look larger. So that kind of brings it in a little bit too. And this is I wasn't sure I was going to get this, and I kind of wasn't going to, but I saw one picture of it at about this angle, and it was on a mesh, and I was like, oh, what watch is that? And then I asked, and then they told me, and I actually was looking it up, and I was thinking, you know what, I think this is that watch that I saw about a week or two ago on Facebook. Someone posted something that was in, I don't know, some foreign language, Asian foreign language, and it's like, yeah, these are the new what they call bottle cap Seiko 5s, and I really like the way this looks. It's very clean. The other colors are cool, but I like this just simple black and silver. It looks the most industrial and not too fancy. I would also dub this as a baby tuna, or tuna light, sometimes I call it. Just because if you look at it, it's got that very perfectly round shape, and it's got that, you know, almost a can, a tuna like can case shape as well. It's very straight. Let me show you a picture of it up here. You can compare it, and you can kind of, it gets that same feel, you know. Let's see if there's any other pictures up here. You know, crown is about the same position, though these ones are, and like SKXs, they're really more like 3:45 position rather 4 o'clock. Although these are truly 4 o'clock. I know, I used to own this one. But yeah, it's very much like a Seiko Tuna. This is SBBN BBN 033, and I liked it also because of the stainless steel bezel, and it's just like without the shroud. It's kind of like that, and I don't know if I can get a better look at the side, but basically the profiles, the lugs are very similar, you know. If you imagine a shroud right over it, these lugs hang right on the bottom of the case, very much like a tuna, and the angle very nicely down, quite steeply actually if you think about it. So it actually hugs the wrist pretty good, and I'll just give you a wrist shot later, and I'll explain something about why I'm selling this. I've only had this basically for about 10 days, and it's a great watch. Again, this is using a 4R35, and my usage, it's been getting about plus 2 seconds a day. It's been very stable. It's holding pretty good, and the lumen's very good. It's not quite as, let's say, as powerful as what you would find on these or a Marine Master or some of the other mid-tier Seikos, such as this. Although this is kind of on the upper end. Those have a newer formula, and the lumen is a bit more green when not loomed up. And this does glow green, but it's still very good. I mean, Seiko lume, even at entry level, is very strong and pretty long lasting. So I wouldn't be disappointed in that area. And you got a day and date, and I do like this. And I'll show you why I like this checkered, like, or black and white contrasting day date in a second. But just real quickly, the 4R36A movement, yeah, it's solid and it works. And practically everything on this is brushed. There are some, you see, some high polished areas, but that's why I kind of like this. Is I generally like more brushed finishing than not. And I guess let's go over the specs on this. What I was going to say, with the 4R36A movement, you probably have about a 40-hour power reserve. Is that right? Yeah, I think right around 40, could be, or 38, somewhere around there. Excuse me. And the hands are like these sword hands, polished, and I really like the applied markers on here. These are like really big, generously sized, and they got a nice frame around them. And the alignment issues, there really isn't any. Obviously the chapter ring, there is no chapter ring. The minute scale or second scale, if you want to call it that, either or, it's all part of the dial, so it lines up perfectly with the indices, so you don't have any alignment issues there. And as you can see, the watch is actually pretty well aligned with the bezel, although I would say it's not 100%. As you can see that if I well, he'll give you that. It's a nice bezel action, smooth. It feels dampened. I like this kind of action on the bezel. It has that kind of feel like you're cracking a safe or something, and you you can tell by the sound of the clicking what kind of a feel it has, because if it's really, I would say, not dampened or dry, it has that really harsh clickety clack sound, clack 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 clack, you know, when you do it. And I don't know which one do you like. I like this more. It's almost a slight delay, like you turn it, click click click, you know, but it holds in place pretty well. This, if you really put some grip it and wiggle it, yeah, you'll get a little bit of play, but realistically there isn't any. But let me show you that once I hit this would be aligned right here, but if you know, I always back play it just to make sure it's locked in, and if that's the case, it is ever so slightly, tell to the, if I back play it like this, it's a little bit to the I guess the right. But the thing is, this bezel is very dampened, and it's got this kind of friction to it anyway, so it doesn't, you just gotta just, you know, just fine tune it just slightly, and it holds just fine. I've never had this thing really shift out of place, out of alignment, so I would say alignment issue isn't a problem. And I suppose, I thought this was all, I looked at first, and it might be all milled out of one piece, but maybe it's just a very tight bezel insert fitted in here. It probably is. So if you really are a stickler for perfect alignment, even once you really clicked and kind of locked it in, you know, like this, by going back clockwise to make sure it doesn't budge, you could undo it and stick it back on again if you really, but I think this is so minor on this particular model, and again, it only takes like a little bit of effort, just barely something, just to get it perfectly aligned, and it's not going to be an issue for anyone, I think. And the dial is basically, it's not completely matte, but it's got like a slight sheen to it, I would say. It's not glossy, it's like semi-gloss or satin kind of black, but it's not a radial finish either, you know, it doesn't radiate, it's just a smooth satin black finish, which is nice. And I really do like these a silver or a brushed aluminum or stainless steel bezel without color. A lot of times it just has that industrial look. And so going back to why I like this, finish off the dimensions. The lug to lug is actually from the very edge tips, it's about 47, but if you measure the if you actually measure the where it pivots on the spring bar, then that's actually more like 45. It's very wearable, and again, I'll give you a wrist shot later. The bracelet is basically straight, does not taper, and actually the lug is 20 millimeters, which I was surprised, and which surprised me about this one too, because I thought for a long time that most Seikos, anything over at 42 millimeters at least and up, usually have 22 millimeter lugs, but this one has 20, and it's not a big deal. I have 20 millimeter straps and options at home too, so I can use it on, but it did catch me by surprise, being that this is 44. So is this one. This is actually 44 as well, and it also has 20mm lugs. That surprised me as well. I swore it was going to be 22, but yeah, and that's basically it. Stamped, class, typical fare, straight end links. You can see it's not there's no, because of this design here, it's much like the tuna again. If you get the bracelet option, it's just going to be straight. You're not going to get anything fitted for this. The crown action is pretty good. It does not screw down, though it has 100-meter water resistance, but I don't think that's going to be an issue, because I come to a realization recently that my Swatch watches back from the 80s, they all had they were made out of plastic, and they were only screw down crowns too. I mean, push, and they held up against water just fine, and I believe they have at least that much, if not less than 100 meters water resistance. So if that's held up, and I put that through swimming, showers, and everything, I don't see why a modern watch that does not have a screw down crown, that has at least 100 meters water resistance, can't hold up to such rigors of water resistance, such as swimming and shower, and even putting it under the faucet. It should be totally fine, unless they really screwed up the manufacturing. Then what can you say? But other than that, it should be fine. Screws, I'm not going to set this because this is very synchronized, but it hacks. It's a 4R36A movement, nothing really special to say about it. And this particular example is running really great, keeping great time. Again, I think my average has been about +2 seconds a day. Not bad at all. And why I like this design, besides the obvious industrial looks, kind of very toolish, very tuna-esque reminiscent, which is one of my favorite watches. It also looks like 2 other watches that I also like, but I don't have, but I would like to maybe someday. But the price point, this is well under those, and those are Tudor, and they would be the focus here. I find this to be kind of like a mix between these 2 watches, the Black Bay Steel and the Black Bay 36. And why not just the Black Bay Steel? Because it has a stainless steel bezel, sort of like this, with a black fill. It's engraved. It's all pretty much brushed, very much like this. It has, a very similar Submariner style dial with the indices, right? And yeah, why not just that one, right? And then it also has like a date in here, which this does, and also a day. But I also like the fact, again, I was going to get to this, this contrasting. So the black day actually kind of disappears, and then you just get the white date. So symmetry wise, it looks better with with what's going on here. If you had this completely white to the day, it would be extra long, and if it was all black, then you create this weird negative space with this little piece of lume at the end. So this basically makes the most sense, and I've done this with one of my watch mods. Look at my Inverse Pepsi tuna mod on YouTube or on the Facebook groups, and you'll see what I mean. But yeah, this just kind of adds to the symmetry. You just get enough of that white of the date wheel to kind of complete what would be like this indice over here, that general size and shape. So overall, it looks very clean and uniform, more symmetrical. And so yeah, there's a lot of similarities to me in how this one feels like, as with all the steel bezel, black dial, Submariner style dial or indices. But why do I even include this one? Because this seems to have most of it. Well, it's mainly the impact of the way this dial is. See, these have the more, what do you call these? The maxi indices or plops or whatever. The maxi dial, where the indices are larger, and you kind of get that same feel with this watch. Don't you think? Yeah, this is more narrow, but generally the proportions of the round and these rectangular ones are basically the same. So that's why I feel it has this kind of feel to it. This kind of more bold dial layout, you know, with the larger indices. But it has kind of this industrial or more tooly look, given the stainless steel bezel and overall this color combination. And it's got a little bit of red accents, and this has a little red accent here with the sports. So yeah, kind of feels like that, and it's kind of mixed in with a little bit of tuna, right? You can kind of see that in the way that the bezel, the grip, the way it's designed. It's not exact, but it's very similar in the general case shape. If you're familiar with the tuna, you can't deny that it has the same feel to it. So yeah, so these three had a menage a trois. This is the love child. Anyways, and that's basically it. And so let me get into a wrist shot real quickly before I end this. And I actually replaced all the links, so this is a full link as it came. And why did I do that? Because, like I said, I'm planning to sell this, or will be putting this up soon. And if you're wondering, I am asking $200 for this, plus whatever shipping, PayPal only, US within the United States. And at this time, it's not negotiable, other than to pay me more. But no, $200 at least. I'm asking for this, and whatever the shipping is on that. Depending on the day, maybe I'm feeling generous, I might throw in shipping. But yeah, I think it's a fair price for a watch. Basically, it's 10 days old, and I've worn it a couple days. I think a total of about 3 days, maybe 4 at most, over the last 10 days. I'll explain why I'm selling it too. But you can see, case is really good. Just no scratches anywhere. If there's any signs of wear, there's a fingerprints, you know, maybe on the bracelet, but you can see it's pretty darn clean. You're basically getting a new watch here. So I think $200 is a fair asking price for this. I paid a bit more for that, but so it is a bit discounted off of this. Anyways, I'll show you a wrist shot as best I can. Keep in mind this is a wide angle camera lens, so you're probably not going to be in proportion in terms of viewing it, but on my 6.875 inch wrist, it's somewhere between 7 and 6 3/4. It works just fine. You see how well, I think for any wrist, you know, mainly because of this design. Well, one thing is it's perfectly round, so you don't have the extra lugs too, or the bulk on too much more on the bulk on the sides of a more fleshed out case. And especially like the tuna design, these very close, underhanging, very well angled lugs just fill in the gap and just allow you to wrap this sucker around your wrist really good. And it's relatively low profile. I believe this is still about a 13mm thickness, but you know, these things tend to sink into the wrist and everything, and this is nothing to be, oh my god, it's too thick. No, I mean, you wear an SKX, which is, I feel this would probably be similar in feel in terms of the presence on the wrist. This would be fine. I mean, if you wear a turtle, that's even bigger, and that's 45, and the case is much more, even more full. But yeah, this wears really nice and good on the wrist. And not much more to say to it. Most Seikos are all comfortable, and they wear about 2mm smaller than you might think the raw dimensions might suggest. And real quickly, why I'm selling this, well, I got this first, and then No Mind Watches offered this SBDC 063 on a bracelet, and I had my mind on this for a bit, and I decided, well, but I avoided it because it didn't come with a bracelet, and then wanted to buy a second watch that had one, and then swap it, or try to find buy it separately, which probably wouldn't cost a bit more than combination it usually does, or wait for like Strapcode or WatchGecko or whatever to make one for this watch. It probably wouldn't take too long, but anyways, I wanted everything factory, and I fell in love with this one. It's just this feels and looks right, and not that this doesn't, but I really do like this one a lot. And if I'm being honest, I have too many divers in my collection, and I kind of have to pick and choose. So I choose this one to go, just because this one's quite nice, and this one's pretty nice too. But I figure this will be easier to sell for most people, offering at about $200 plus shipping. I think this is a really good watch to get if you like this kind of Tuna S design with that kind of black bay steel, black bay 36-ish kind of look to it. Great 4R36A movement. Again, it's been holding very good time. Great bezel action. 20 millimeters, so it fits a lot of straps that you might have already. And this it's very unique. There isn't anything quite like this in Seiko's lineup, other than what I pointed out. But this is still very unique, and I don't think anybody else has really made a watch exactly like this. Yeah. Anyways, that's about it. It's a great watch. Contact me through the messaging on YouTube, or look me up on Facebook if you want to buy this off of me. Otherwise, I will be posting it on the groups and probably on eBay, and see which one sells first. All right, thanks.